Welcome to the Swedish Junior Hockey Podcast. Jacob Dahlin, your host today. The first Stanley Cup champion on the podcast, Mike Hartman. Welcome to the podcast.
Well, it's great to be here.
This episode is brought to you by Scandlux, your home for Scandinavian luxury products for the U.S. market. You can find us at scandlux.com.
So we got a little bit of things in common. I'm actually not in North Carolina. I'm in South Carolina today on a little bit of family vacation here, but you're in North Carolina.
Yeah. Charlotte, North Carolina.
Yeah.
Lived here. I came here not to retire. I came here to get away from hockey and ended up, after my last year, I've had too many injuries. And then while I was here, I ran into one of the people with the checkers, and they asked me if I wanted to play once in a while. And I made the mistake of saying yes, because I was already getting old. But it wasn't a mistake to play. It was more of like, what am I doing at that age? I mean, my last game was in 2008. I played one game and I was 40 something. So when I walked in the room, my kids were pretty close to almost that age, it seemed. But yeah.
Well, I appreciate coming on. The main topic today, we're going to get to it, which is, and we'll give a plug for your podcast and the stuff you do with mindfulness. And I think it's a good time to talk about this, really, and especially since this is a junior hockey podcast. The goal of this, it's crazy. We run it for 2 years and published over 100 episodes, and the goal is still the same, and that is to educate and inform. And this episode will follow Cody Murphy, who's the new head coach for an all team, Elmira Aviators. And if you think about it from a perspective of these kids are coming in 18, 19 years old, they're going to main camp, maybe USHL, maybe NOL, maybe NCDC, maybe they're going to Canada. And we'll talk about your background there in that. But it's timely because mindfulness, focus, goal setting, the mental part of the game versus the physical, and so I want to let's go back a little bit to your background, and then we'll segue into that because I think that it provides some perspective of you've been there and so on. But before we get started, I wanted so I'm gonna put a plug in for your book. I guess I just bought your book.
Well, thank you.
Which is okay. I was looking at the look inside, and it had kind of the introduction, and it had such a good. It had look inside. Here it is. And I wanted to read this because you don't have it open, but I wanted to read it for the people because it provides so much perspective. And it says in the introduction, and this is the book, it's on Amazon, Healthy Mindset for Athletes and Workspace Athletes, helping athletes achieve their dreams and goals while being mindful. And it says here in the introduction, I was never supposed to make it. I was too short and too small and made up for it by being too slow. Everyone agreed there was absolutely no way I would ever become a professional hockey player. Everyone agreed, that is, except for me. I believed, and because I believed, I made believers out of my family, friends, coaches, and eventual teammates. I believed and I worked. I believed and I sweated. I believed and I learned. I believed and I planned. I believed and worked, sweated, learned, and planned, and even more. Some people would see my situation and give up. I lived my situation and used the inadequacies people saw as fuel to make myself better. I proved to them I had what it took. Because I would not give up, because I worked hard, and because I made the most of what a talent I had, I achieved my personal best. I became a professional hockey player in the National Hockey League. I made it, and so can you. That was freaking awesome.
Okay.
And I read that and I was like, wow, that's really a one pager of what I want to talk about. But
Sure.
So
Yeah.
I gave you a little preview. So let's go back a little bit. You grew up in Michigan, and talk about that a little bit, because not necessarily. I told you I grew up on a dairy farm in Sweden, not where you grew up.
Right. Well, just a little bit about the book there. There's a lot of I's there, but I'm all about the team. And when I wrote this book initially, it was all about just sharing with people a lot of the struggles that I had and we could be here I really struggled as a young player. So growing back to Michigan, I played baseball, and I was 5 or 6 years old, and I wanted to play hockey. I was playing t-ball, and my father never played hockey. My uncle played a little bit of hockey, my uncles, and then my father eventually played hockey later on, but I was a player that wanted to play hockey. So my parents got me we grew up in a city called Oak Park. So I lived there until I was 15. Then I moved to West Bloomfield for a little bit. And when I moved to West Bloomfield, I still went to school there for a little bit, but I went to Canada just shortly after that. So I grew up in the city. And I just wanted to play hockey. And I told my parents each year, so not to go from the beginning, but I was still playing house league around 9 years old. And I think by 10 or 11, I played A hockey. Then I got to be okay. And then I played double A. And then when I played on the triple A team, I told my father I want to play triple A hockey. So that's just too expensive. So we played downriver Michigan. So we had to drive down by the train tracks, let's just say, on a side of town that was where the bar was open at 8 a.m. Now, I don't drink, but it was a place where on the other side of the tracks, and I played, and I was the worst player on the team at 13. You mentioned the Quebec tournament. I played in the Quebec tournament. I was the worst player, but I made the AAA team. I looked good in tryouts. And what happened was it finally got to a point where I left that team. I trained all summer, went to a hockey school called Cooper Hockey Camp in Toronto in Oakville, Ontario. And at that time, there was a guy there named Shane Corson, and he started fighting with me. I didn't like to fight, but I fought him. We fought, and we didn't like each other, and we played against each other for a long time. And there were some other good players there, and they were good. They were these strong Canadian kids. And I said, okay, this is what I need to do to get stronger. So without getting too deep into it, at the hockey schools, there was a person named Bill Hayward. He was a military sergeant. So we got up at 5 a.m. We skated hard. I mean, hard. Even to this day, I can't believe we skated that hard, working on our skating technique and skating 10 down, 10 back. Don't take shortcuts. From this, in the sergeant would wake us up every morning, banging the stick at 5 a.m. to be on the ice. And I said, this is what it takes to be a hockey player. If you step on the grass, it's 15 push-ups or 20. And I was a mouthy kid. I said, let's do 25. You want to, and these were OHL counselors, and they didn't really appreciate the American that says, I'll do 25. I kind of opened my mouth a little bit. So I learned the physical side, and I learned how to work on my skills. And I played for CompuWare that 14-year-old year, and ended up having, I had like 75 goals and played on a line, played in the Kamloops tournament. A player by the name of Jimmy Carson, who got traded for Wayne Gretzky, was my center. So he set me up at the Kamloops tournament, got the MVP of the Kamloops tournament. So all in a matter of a year, I go from the worst player to playing for CompuWare, where the main objective of the coach was, how are your grades? So you had it. He cared about our schoolwork. He cared about us as people. His name is Dave LaMotta. And then from there, I went to play for Little Caesars. I moved up and played for Chris Corey, who's one of my closest friends to this day. We just talked about him on something that I've done recently. And he really helped me develop. I went to Canada to play Tier 2, like your son, I believe, is playing.
Yeah.
And had a mentor there named Bob Langley, who is a coach and does what I do. And he took me in at 16 to his house with his family. He played in the Western Hockey League and played in the minors. And it just escalated from there. So I mean, we can get into the story a little bit, but I literally I struggled. I barely made the team. I was a real skinny 13-year-old. And at 14, I learned, and I want to thank Shane Corson, and I don't know who else was there, but there were some tough kids at that camp. And next thing you know, you get invited to the US programs, and hey, this is pretty good. I'm playing hockey here with some good players.
And I bet you the people that you were surrounded with probably did not have your background.
No, they were these kids from mostly Canadians, and I didn't understand how it really worked. Like you played AAA in Detroit, and like you said, what AA, AAA, it was good, but I didn't really know, how the system worked. Played in that Quebec tournament. We talked about your son a little bit, and that was great. Got some playing time, but I was just on the team, never killed penalties. But it wasn't until somebody said, listen, like Dave LaMotta from CompuWare says, listen, you need to get your mindset in the right place and you could do anything in your life. And I started believing in that. And Chris Corey and some of my coaches. Now, nothing against the coach that had me when I was 13. He was a great coach, but it was me who wasn't prepared.
Well, I mean, as a 13-year-old, your brain is not developed to be. I mean, what 13-year-old? I've coached 13-year-olds. I know what their brain. I've been 13.
Right.
It's not necessarily, thought and planning is not necessarily front and center.
Yep. What I realized is I just thought of this. There's a player in your neck of the woods that I played with at 13. EJ Sauer. I don't know if you ever met EJ.
No.
Yeah, he lives I think he played in the East Coast League years ago, and he settled in Greensboro or Winston-Salem. But
okay.
But those were tough years. When you're a young athlete and you're on the bubble as a young player, it's all about confidence. It's all about learning the game. And I really was when you play at a lower level, like in house league, you don't really learn the game as much. And the next thing you know, you're playing with AAA players. And wait a sec here, what is a third man high back then? Two players deep, make sure you're the safety valve, and you're watching defensemen, make sure they hinge so they give the D an outlet pass, so you're not just the parallel. One has to go back, and I didn't know that stuff until you get to AAA, and wait a sec, what's going on here? This is new for me.
When did you move away from home the first time?
Yeah, 16.
16. Okay. Was that when you went to Canada?
Yes, North York.
North York. So what was that like? From a family situation, was that a big deal for you?
Yes, because at that time it was hard, actually, a little homesick, learning how it works. And how I got to North York was because of Steve Conroy, who was a former NHL player. Steve was my counselor, who I really looked up to at our camp in Canada, introduced me to an agent named Gus Badali, who had three pretty good players, Dale Hawerchuk, Wayne Gretzky, and Mario Lemieux. And here I was, this agent said, you know what, let's see if we could help you get to North York, because I know people there. And he ended up being an agent to me, and just a really good person named Gus Badali way back then. And I was learning the game. I mean, it's funny, at 16, my father gave me an old car. I had this old Grand Prix, and he didn't know this at the time, but I lived in Mississauga, and Gus Badali had tickets to Maple Leaf Garden anytime I wanted it. Little did he know, I got tickets to every home game on Saturday, because in that league, we didn't play a lot of Saturday night games back then. So I was headed to Maple Leaf Gardens, parking my car, getting there at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, going to the Papaya Hut, going to Swiss Chalet by myself with the little money I had, going to Maple Leaf Gardens. Game starts at 8 o'clock on a Saturday, getting home at midnight sometimes at 16. And I had back then we didn't have cell phones, so I was always nervous. Is my father going to call me? Never did on this. He said the car is for school and hockey, driving with the player I lived with, who was 20. Bob Langley. Maple Leaf Gardens. Former, he was like he was helping me then. He wasn't my agent at 16. He was somebody that was
Yeah.
Gus said, anytime you want tickets, we get them all the time. Our agency. Okay, Gus. And I kept saying, I don't want to take advantage. He goes, come every Saturday when the Leafs are in town. And it was great experience.
Who was the guy? So how old? So who was that when Boreas Salming was playing in Toronto?
Yeah, love Boreas Salming. Yeah, I could tell you, I was like, you can mention any player, and I could tell you I had I used to study the books because my father worked for the Red Wings, and Detroit Red Wings as the photographer, so he would bring me all those books home, and I could tell you about every single. You can mention any name, and I'll tell you where they're from. And it got to a point where it got ridiculous. I used to study, like I have a memory that I could read something and remember it. So I was looking at players, and Boreas Salming, number 21 at that time. I really enjoyed watching him play. He wore the Daewoo skates, if you remember, back in those days. Yeah,
No.
I could share, that type of stuff. I was going to watch the Leafs play, and I was just really a big hockey fan at that time.
I can tell. I mean, you can tell how long I've been in the U.S. when I call Boreas Salming instead of Boria. But I think that it's, not to get too bogged down into Boreas Salming, but it ties in a little bit to mindfulness, because one of the problems, I mean, we just finished here, so we're recording this end of May, and we just finished the IAHF World Championship, which nobody cares about over here. In Europe, it's the biggest thing, right? It's bigger than the Olympics, maybe not, but from a hockey perspective, Sweden has been, posting out, or not even posting out. They've been a disappointment both in World Juniors and the senior worlds. And this year they had a packed team, and Boreas Salming was kind of not the typical Swede. Where and I don't know if you've heard of this, or you agree with this kind of the label of the Swede being kind of soft and not tough, but Boreas Salming was the opposite of that.
Yeah, and so was Ulf Samuelsson. So I think that was a label. In fact, I liked all the Swedes. I got along with the Swedes and some of the Finns that I played against. Some of them, they were chippy, but the Swedes played with a lot of great Swedes. You mentioned the World Junior Championships. I played in the World Junior Championships, and the Swedes had this player, and he had hair down to his arm. And we look at him, I go, who is this guy? And it was Kalle Johansson.
Oh, yeah.
And I ended up playing with him in Buffalo, and he got drafted. He was unbelievably skilled. So the Swedes were extremely skilled. But in that World Junior Championship back when I played, we had a good team. But watching the Swedes, fast and strong, so many good Swedish players that they could skate, because that's what they did. They could skate back then.
He ended up playing a long time in the NHL. I think he was from Björklöven up in Umeå in Sweden originally, and I think he ended up playing for the Capitals.
He did, Washington.
Yeah. Well, so let's talk about your junior. So you played. So when you were 16, you move up to York. Was that juniors back then, or was this
Tier 2 in Canada?
Okay.
So we played, at that time. And then at 16, it's funny, at 13, I was the worst player, and turning 17, I had a handful of scholarships, and one of them was Michigan State. So it was 100% I was going to Michigan State. There was a person named Sean Walsh, who was the assistant coach, and he would visit me, and he said, you're going to be playing here at 18 years old. They wanted me to finish school early. So that was great. And it didn't work out that way. Sean Walsh ended up going to Maine to be a head coach. He passed away, but super guy. He would send me letters, and we still have them. It's funny. My father saved all this stuff. And there was a bunch of schools. So it was 100% I was going to college. That's what my mother said. There's not a second choice. Spadali said, listen, we think you're going to be a high draft pick, which didn't work out. So I put all my eggs in one basket. That basket broke. So I ended up.
I don't know. You did okay.
Well, the basket broke, and I ended up going to Belleville, and I went backwards. So I played in junior hockey. I'm playing there. I tell Michigan State that I'm not going there.
What
And
was that the year, or you're a little bit, sorry, the dryer's going off in the background here.
I don't hear, yeah, we're good.
That's good. So you're a few years older than Rod Brindamore. Didn't he go to Michigan State?
He did. He did go. And I had a lot of friends. Danton Cole, Bobby Reynolds. Danton Cole was a good friend of mine. I played in Tampa and Winnipeg with him. Detroit player. Great player at 14. One of the best players I've ever seen at 14 years old. Yeah, they were.
But you have the choice there of was that right when you were going from tier 2, and then you're like, okay, do I go to the OHL, right? Or do I go and play college?
Yeah, and I did. I ended up choosing that route of playing, and it's a pretty neat story. I don't know how much time we have, but
You got plenty.
I played in junior and had a good amount of points. Got beat up a little bit back then, but still did okay. Took care of myself, and I was all set to go to Michigan State. But February came, and I was told I should try to play in the OHL, and Belleville drafted me. And I went to Belleville, and it was a disaster in a way where I thought I was pretty good. And I said, wait a second, I wasn't playing much. It didn't work out. And Jimmy Devellano, who knew my father, told my father initially I was rated in the 3rd round. And then he saw my father and he says, well, you're not rated in the 7th round. And then he saw my dad again. He goes, I have bad news. I don't think he's going to get drafted. And I didn't get drafted. I did not get drafted. And the quick story is, because this is, the quick story is I was going to quit hockey. So I hope your junior listeners don't listen to this. And if you listen to the whole thing, I was going to quit. I was going to quit, go back to school. I was going to go to Oakland University in Michigan. I told my father, I'm done. I'm quitting, because each year gets tougher and tougher. You don't get drafted the first year.
Yep.
And I didn't have fun. I didn't like it. And for all the reasons, and I still have the text message I still have it. I saved it. I could show it to you, but it means a lot. But right after the draft, I got to the draft. I didn't get drafted. Wendell Clark went number 1 that year. And that's what I told my dad. I'm done. And like 5-6 days later, I get a call from Jimmy Devellano, the president of the Detroit Red Wings and general manager. And I get a call, and the phone rings, and I answer the phone. And he says, Mike, I go, yeah. He goes, this is Jimmy Devellano. Can you come down to Joe Louis Arena today or tomorrow? I go, I can come now, but I have to get dressed in nice clothes. He goes, well, just put a golf shirt on. Pair of shorts is fine. And I remember I said, oh, Mr. Devellano, I should be dressed up. He goes, Mike, come down. I want to talk to you. So I called my father. Because he knew my dad a little bit. I told my mother in the house, Jimmy Devellano wants to see me, the president. So I get down there, I'm all dressed up, and I go in there, and he sits me down in this room, and he goes, let's have lunch. And I'm getting lunch inside Joe Louis Arena. So excited, like, wow, I'm going to go to training camp. And he says, you know why I brought you here today? I said, yeah, to give me a tryout. He goes, oh, no, completely the opposite. I go, oh. He goes, your body language on the bench is not very good. We've watched you. When you did play, you really never did anything to stand out, because to play in the NHL, you have to stand out. You try to start fights for no reason. Your energy wasn't good. You're shooting, you get the puck and you're looking to pass. And I go, wow, man, now my confidence is down. I know I'm quitting. And I never used that word in my life. Actually, it was kind of just a tough time, to be upfront with everybody. And he goes, but I want to make you a deal. I go, what's that? If you follow my plan, in the Detroit Red Wings plan, and I'm going to sit with you, I'm going to outline what you need to do in each zone. The defensive zone, the neutral zone, and the offensive zone. And I want to help you with your mindset, even way back then. And there's things that you need to do. You need to see somebody and talk about doing some imagery. I go, what's imagery? Just visualizing things that you need to do. If you follow this plan, I will give you a tryout to the Detroit Red Wings when you're 20, because we like you as a person and we believe you could do it, and you're a local kid from Detroit. I said, perfect. I said, one negative. I said, but Mr. Devillano, I'm having a hard time in Belleville. He goes, don't worry. We're going to get you out of Belleville. The ice surface is too big for you because they had an Olympic-sized sheet, the only one in the OHL. We're going to find a place that's going to fit you well. I go, you could do that? I said, my agent called. He goes, I could do that. I get traded to North Bay, become a penalty killer, get drafted in the NHL at 19. And I sent Mr. Devillano a message. I thanked him, but he gave me this whole plan. And if nobody ever gave me a plan, I would have never played beyond junior hockey. It would have been, that was it. And he gave me this plan. And that's funny. I have I should send it to you because it meant so much. I reached out to him not too long ago. I just want to thank you because you really impacted me. And sometimes we need a mentor. And that's what led me to do what I'm doing today. And the whole purpose is to add value and help people because I've been at the very bottom and I know what it's like. It's not fun. So,
wow. So, I mean, what are the odds? I mean, I guess I would love to have a separate conversation about talking about your dad, but he must have had a pretty special relationship with being a photographer. If he can get you, I mean, I would wonder how he must have had something to do with that.
well, so I played for Little Caesars.
Okay.
And Little Caesars was owned by Mike Ilitch,
Yeah.
who owned the Red Wings, owned the Detroit Tigers. And the way my father got in the penalty box was there was a time when the photographer wasn't showing up. And somebody mentioned that at one of our games, and my father's a photographer by hobby. He is an accounting background and he was in the wallpaper business. He goes, I would love to come down and help. He goes, well, we need someone to come down. And it got back, and someone said, call this person with the Red Wings. They loved my dad. My dad was friends with all the Red Wings. The guys didn't like me. He was friends with Adam Oates. My dad's taking pictures of Adam Oates while his dad's in the corner. Heard all these stories. Probert was there. My father took him for lunch a couple times. He still wanted to beat me up. But it was kind of interesting. Like Lane Lambert and Steve Yzerman would have lunch with my dad. And I met Claude Loisel. And I met these players. And Jimmy Devillano liked my dad. They didn't have a really great relationship. But he would see my father in the press room. And he would always give him updates. And had my number maybe through my dad. But my father didn't really even know I was going down there.
Okay.
He was nice enough to do that because if it wasn't for him, I was done.
I mean, what a pivotal. So, are you familiar with the game Plinko?
I've heard of Planko, yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, to me, it's the story of my life. You know, you put the disc at the top of the game, you know, and then it goes, the little thing bounces on the nails, and you know, I told you offline, I came in high school to the U.S. and it's the most pivotal. You know, the most important part about that is you got to put the disc in.
Yes.
Right. If you don't put the disc in the game, it won't come out. No matter, it won't come out anywhere. But once you put the disc in the game and it bounces on these nails, and it may end up way over here, and you think it's going to go over here, and it's inches, seconds, and circumstances that differs between it goes left or right, and that's kind of, you know, those forks in the road in life. And sometimes it's the people that you meet, it's a decision that you make or not make. And but you know, to me, it's the biggest advice that I have for young people is put the disc in the game, so to speak. Too many people don't put the disc in the game. They sit idle, you know, and then they don't experience the things that they want to do.
Yeah. There's a word Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say, what do you remember that? So at what point did you have when we're talking about mindfulness and you use the word awareness or perhaps self-realization, when do you remember or about what time it was when you became aware that, okay, you go from almost wanting to quit, and then at some point, hey, I'm pretty good. Because if we go back to kind of what in the introduction of your book, you believe there's a big delta between, there's a big gorge between where you were there and where you were when you were saying, I believed. How did
Right.
you get there?
Yeah, well, I think it was confidence, and I had if you look him up, Bert Templeton, he was the toughest coach in Canada. He was tough. In fact, if you look him up, he coached that junior team that had that
In North Bay.
in North Bay, but he also coached the World Junior team when they had that big altercation and Canada lost their medals against Russia.
Okay.
1987, 86, 87. Yeah. So, but he believed in me, and it was the craziest thing. I learned how to kill penalties, and I was pretty good. And he believed at that time, I didn't kill a lot in the NHL. I did a little bit, depending on what team it was on, where I played. But it was really somebody taking the time to believe in you. And you say, boy, I could do this. And all you need to do, I knew one thing. If I could outwork the person across from me and not take any shortcuts and do little things, be a good team player, keep my values in the right place. And, the old cliche, the name on the front of the jersey is more important than the name on the back. And I always looked at it like that, but I knew that name on the back, that name on the back wouldn't be there in junior hockey if you don't do all these little things. So I never worried about the outcome, which I did when I was 17. Oh, where am I getting drafted? What's going to happen? So if I can give I don't like the word advice, I say mentorship.
Mm-hmm.
Kids, don't worry. And they always say, well, you have to have the outcome. Yes, that's a vision dream. Great. I want to play college hockey one day. Absolutely. You have to see yourself doing that. But I didn't think about the outcome all the time. I knew we talked about mindfulness. Wherever my 2 feet are, wherever my skates are, that's where I am, no matter what's going on. I might play one shift. I better be the best one shift player. I talk to a lot of junior hockey players. And
so how much of that goes back to the Joey Devellano from Detroit in that, the coaching or the path that he laid in front of you? Was that
a lot? A lot. So I didn't listen to my dad. My father was one of those tough guys. I get in a car and he would say, you were horrible tonight. Yeah, back in those days, I told him he would have gone to jail today the way we did it back when we were kids. But Jimmy Devellano really took the time to help me without, just took the time to help. And it's so funny, at that time, he called me like after 3 weeks. He called me, like it wasn't like goodbye. He says, how are you doing? I said, I'm doing good. He goes, I know you are. I go, well, how do you know? He says, because Nick Plano saw you running down Orchard Lake Road in the heat. And part of your plan was on Thursdays, he gave me the day to do it. You need to run 3 to 5 miles and build up that VO2 base, that baseline, because they saw me getting tired quick without getting into me so much about it. So it's so weird. You talk about timing. The coach of the Red Wings at that time saw me jogging down this road in Detroit. And I go, that's right. He goes, well, keep it going. I'm just checking in. And then he would send me letters, little notes. He would tell my father in North Bay, he got a report on him. He's playing better. That's all. He wouldn't say too much. And my father would call me and say, Mr. Devellano just told me that, and he'll tell you how it is. He will not tell you, oh, good job, and you're not doing well. He would tell you exactly how it is. So everything that, like I said, I was done with hockey. I was quitting. not a good attitude to have. You never quit, but it was in me at a very young age, and I'm telling you the story. And it was him that really laid out that foundation of what to do. And there's a big word I use today. It's not a big word, but it's very important. Like, I believe in things should be for free, videos for kids. And this is a really big thing, and I hope I'm not taking away. Somebody has a video about, I'm going to show you how to be the best player on the ice with your mindset. You're going to be doing defensive zone coverage. We're going to show you. I'm not going to say it doesn't work because that's not fair, but it will never work for me because I need it transformational. It has to be transformational. I had to be out on the ice. I had to train. I had to put myself in that position. Yes, education to me is the biggest thing. We teach by that. But a big part of it is it has to be transformational. I can't just watch like Mr. Miyagi. You remember he told wax on that. I just thought of that, Mr. Miyagi. I know the kid came to him and he said, I come to teach you the basics.
Yeah.
And you go through it. You had to go through that transformation. And if I just would have said, thank you, Mr. Devellano, I like this thing you got me, here's the training program, thank you, I would have been done. But I had to take the steps to actually do it. So it became more of a habit. And that's the important thing. So I tell all kids, junior hockey players, you have to do it. You have to experience it. You have to have adversity. You'll have setbacks. To me, that's so important. If you've gone through something, okay, how can you improve on it? You have to have a reset button. Okay, I didn't do well at this junior showcase. What am I going to do? Okay, I'm going to have a better shift. I'm going to hit the reset button. I don't care who's in the stands, because you mentioned that early. I don't, Michigan State, Michigan, USHL teams are watching me. You have to be the best player. You have to be the best player on the bench. You can't sit there and sulk. Your teammate scores, no matter what the situation is. You have to be fully mindful of everything you're doing as a junior hockey player and everything in life, but this is what we focus on. You have to be aware, and don't judge yourself next to the player that's there. Oh, this kid's he's already committed at 16 years old to Yale. This kid's going here. You focus on you, and I promise good things will happen. And not so much the outcome. Boy, if I don't make this team, where am I going to go? You get out there and you outwork everybody, but be smart. You can't just work like a maniac and be out of control. Play really well in all three zones. Be prepared. So the number one thing for a hockey player is, junior hockey player, is be prepared. Not just 3 minutes. You're going to see the players that clown around in the dressing room. They're not really into it. And believe it or not, people are watching. They're not really, there is a clown, nothing against it, but he may have played on the team or does, but they're laughing at him. You want to be known as someone that's going to have respect, that's going to be ready and fully prepared to the best of your abilities, and make sure you're getting better every week, every month. And that's how you look at it. And don't worry about, oh, nobody has I'm 18, 19, nobody has called me, nobody wants me. Things have a way of working itself out.
Well, let's go into this, because we've talked a lot about mindfulness, and it's so funny, and it's, I'm going to completely leapfrog your professional career, and that you got a Stanley Cup ring, but all these things are all of those things are things that you experience that put you in a position now to be a mentor in what you're describing. And we become experts after the fact, right? And you wish you would, one of the segments, and I'm going to ask you this later, and that is, you met yourself at 17, and what things do you know now that you wish you would have known then? But so we're going to ask that. I always ask one of my guests that at the end, so we'll do that. But so when I put down mindfulness, in my mind, I wrote down two words. One is focus and one is awareness.
Perfect.
Right.
Yeah.
And the opposite, I wrote down my notes here. The opposite is delusional. So funny story. I was just asked to come back. I'm no longer involved in the Youth Hockey Association here, but they asked me to come back and evaluate the tryouts, right? And whether it's tryouts at training camp in the NHL, whether it's main camp in the NAL or USHL, or whether you're a 10-year-old trying out for a youth hockey team, you're being judged. Just like you were being judged when you were running in the heat, when you were in the locker room, and when you're saying, be prepared because someone's always looking. I try to explain this, that, I mean, I may only have 30 seconds to look at this kid. And whatever I'm seeing at the time, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're a good or a bad hockey player. It's whatever I'm seeing at this time. I've got 30 kids on the ice, and I'm supposed to evaluate and give a score to every one of them. It's kind of the same way it works no matter what, right? No matter what level. And it could be that you're in a really cranky mood and you just saw that, man, you got unmatching socks. And that is something that really ticks you off, right? So, you know, be aware of those things. But in my, I did a little research, and I went to Hartman.academy, and I wrote down a couple of things that are about, you know, that you talk a lot about, and that is doing an assessment, right? You do an assessment, and you've gone through lots of training, but when I'm thinking about an assessment, is kind of being aware, mindful, being self-aware of where are you? How important is it for you to put your stake down and saying, this is where I am? Like, or you were saying, this is where I am today. My skates are now on this piece of ice, right?
Yeah, very good. Well, it's funny. I got in the assessment business 18 years ago from the University of Tennessee, and that's how I do what I do now.
Yeah.
So the assessment we use is we have showing you if you're ready to play, and a mind-body assessment. So the assessment is like, it really looks at your values, because I want to see what kind of a person you are. So all you junior hockey players, I worked with the U.S. program for 5 years as a head coach at the development camp, and we did it in Rochester, New York back then. And they would always ask these questions. And the first question is, what kind of a kid is he? The second question is, does he have good grades, or does she have good grades? What kind of and the third thing is, could he or she play? Because you have to be able to play.
Yeah.
But they look for good people.
Yeah.
And that's the most important thing. Are you a good person and authentic, real? Because that's super important. Even when they draft players in the NHL, they interview that player, and it's not uncommon for a lot of the interview to be about what kind. They already know what kind of a hockey player it is, but they want questions. They want to know what kind of where's your values. So we give a values-based assessment, and then what I do is because I mentioned the word transformation, I do an audio debriefing of that assessment, and we give out a bunch of tools like meditations and visualizations for free. But it's important that we have a baseline of where you are, because it's just really a tool. So an assessment is a tool, nothing more to me, nothing less. It's a tool that says, okay, do you believe this? Yes, no. And that's what that tool is for, just to see where your current mindset is at this point.
But let me interrupt you there. Tool for who? Is it tool for you as the mentor, or is it the tool for the mentee?
It's for both.
Okay.
Because you have to know where you are. A mentor, a coach just keeps people on track. I always said in coaching, if you're going north, you're going full speed ahead. We're going to Sweden. I'm joking. Full speed ahead north. If you're going east and west, we need some work. You're going sideways. How can we get you centered? If you're going south, you're totally going the wrong direction. Everything's not working out. I felt it was going south for me at 17, 18 years old. Maybe I exaggerated a little bit at that time. You don't know. I can't even remember. But that's how we look at that and say, okay, so what can we do to get better? You mentioned something. I want to share this with everybody. So it's not a glamorous thing. Yes, you said I won a Stanley Cup. There was 25 players on that team. I tell everybody it was an all-star team. I always say that. We didn't have a salary cap. We had half the Edmonton Oilers, and my job from Neil Smith was to be an insurance policy and play when I can. I made the World Junior team after playing in Buffalo, and somebody got hurt, and they needed me to play. I was added to the World Championships. I played on a line with Neil Broughton and Joe Mullen to the qualifying rounds because I was in Europe. Lou Vero called me and says, Mike, you're the last guy I want. I was playing in Cologne, Germany, and I was already retired then, and made a comeback and played in Europe, and ended up playing. And they said, we need you. We're not sure how much you're going to play. I ended up playing a lot on that line, but they told me, you are not going to play much. I go, when am I leaving? He goes, well, next week we have the qualifying rounds for the in Austria, in Klagenfurt, Austria. So I was always that guy on the bubble. I was a career fourth liner. Again, the only good thing is I was traded to the Pittsburgh Penguins, and they recalled the trade. I would have had a Stanley Cup there. I would have probably maybe played. They had a lot of injuries. Back then I was a regular with Buffalo, and you can't look back. But I was that guy that was always that bubble player. And so I work probably better with somebody that's, okay, you're on the bubble. What can you do as a player? Now, as a coach, I'm helping you. You might see something. I may see something else. Great minds in hockey. This player, Nicholas Lindstrom, ended up
I've heard of him.
Played for Scotty Bowman. And Scotty Bowman said the best line. I used this the other day. He said the best line I've ever heard. And he said to me, he says, there's 4 games being played. And I looked at him. I was very young. I go, 4 games? I go, what do you mean? He goes, well, there's the game that the fans see. And they might be watching a power play, and why aren't they shooting? Shoot. And, you're not supposed to shoot. They might see Nicholas Lindstrom, one of the best players ever to play, defensive players. Why didn't he rush the puck? What's going on? Well, he knows what he's doing. So the average fan won't see it. And then there's a game that the player sees, and they're on the bench, a little bit of a dreamer. You said that. What's the word you said earlier on? I'm trying to come to this word. That's not realistic. You said
the delusional.
Delusional. So you're the delusional player. Why I'm not on the power play? How come I'm not playing? Like, what's going on? I should be out there more. I'm as good as him. And then there's a game that the coach sees, and the coach sees the game from ice level, and they might miss something. He's watching one thing, telling a player something, and somebody made a great play. And then Scotty Bowman said, and there's the 4th game. It's the game that I see, not meaning me, meaning Scotty Bowman. And he says, you know what I see, Mike? I see that you're ready to go back to junior because you're not ready to be up here. So he sees everything. He says, I see you on the bench. I see you on the ice. I see you walking around. I see you on the plane. I go, wow. I never really told that full story, but I enjoy your show. So if it helps the players, and I go, that kind of wasn't great for my confidence, but it's kind of funny looking back. He says, I see the game that you're not ready to be up here. So yes, I played on these teams. I won a Calder Cup in Hershey. Was a captain there. But I was a borderline hockey player. That's why I tell any athlete, any hockey player, you can do it. That's why when you mentioned the book, reason why I'm going into this is because if you want it bad enough, for the most part, numbers are tough sometimes. Everything's tough in life. The insurance business is tough, right? Everything we do is tough. But if you really focus and be mindful, do the right things, don't take shortcuts, listen to your coaches, be a good team player, just do these very basic things, hockey can take you in a really good direction.
So let me go to the other side of this. So you're talking about where am I and the assessment and both for the mentor and mentee, and the other one is going to be where am I going? So the goals and I guess you could break that down into vision and goals, right?
Right.
How important are the goals, or when I say where am I going, what comes to your mind then? Is it the short term, the intermediate, long term, or is it all of them?
Yeah, I have all these different things on goals, but I'm going to keep it so simple. So you're from Sweden, and we played a lot of. I went there as a little kid, 12 years old. My dad was a coach of a hockey team, and called Berkeley Shamrock. We went to Avesta, and I know one thing: we go out there and play hockey at any time. But what happens if I'm in Sweden and you're playing out there, and there's like 3-on-3, but they take the goals away, the nets, we'll call them. What happens? Like, we're playing, it's fun. It's like you have nothing to shoot for. It's boring. So we look at goals. Like, goals are great. There's so many different acronyms, SMART goals. We have all that. But if you don't have, like they say, the why, which is very basic, but if you don't have that reason and something to shoot for, forget it. So if you're a junior hockey player and you just say, well, my goal is to play college hockey, Division I. Well, so it's got to be measurable, right? Then there's a short-term goal. Okay, what am I going to do in the next 1 to 3 months? And then what's the long-term goal? And you mentioned it, the vision goal. That's the dream. My vision is to play for North Dakota and then play in the NHL one day. I see that. I'm going to have a vision board. I'm going to put it on. Great. But you have to start from the beginning, and you really need something to shoot for. And that's what Jimmy Devellano did. He laid it out that, even way back then, you need to get 7 shots. One of them was you need to shoot and get 7 shots on net a game. I go, 7? I always had 2 or 3 or 1 back then. But when I had that mindset to say, okay, he wants me to shoot from everywhere, but don't take a shot coming down the wing so it goes around the boards and they're breaking out, without getting in the details of it. But if he didn't lay it out for me and really lay this foundation out, I would have been like, what do you mean 7 shots? Well, it's got to be actionable. Anywhere. You shoot from the side of the net. You shoot. You shoot from everywhere. So that's what I mean. And I always look at that as like, if you don't have something to shoot for, it's
well, how much of that bleeds into the strategy, or how am I going to get there? Right? The goal is that I want to get 7 shots, but then and the why ties in with that. But then the last thing is the strategy of what am I going to do to get 7 shots?
Yeah, it's easy. It's to me, I'll break it down. If you follow a program, not Mike Hartman's, not somebody, if you follow a system or a program that I'm not going to take shortcuts. I'm going to practice maybe meditation 5 minutes a day. Because like I said, we're always worried about the outcome, but let's focus on what can I do right now to get better. Sleep is so important. Properly fueling your body. Your coaches will help you. That's one thing. I'm not the hockey coach. I'm more of doing the performance, helping you with your performance. Well, I'm not on the power play. I said, well, are you the first one on the ice and the last one off and really working on your game? I haven't won a lot of faceoffs. This ties back to a Scotty Bowman story. I played with Chris Draper in Winnipeg, and good player, Team Canada player. He gets picked up by the Red Wings for $1 because there had to be a financial transaction to it. And everyone knows it. So long story short, he's in the minors, and it was during the All-Star break in the NHL, and all the coaches went down there. Dave Lewis, because one of the coaches told me this story, and I knew Chris. Chris didn't even tell me this. And they were going there to watch a few players, and they see Chris Draper playing a great game. He had a goal, he had an assist, played out of his mind. After the game, Scotty Bowman and the brass is there. Barry Smith is the guy that I know. He worked in Sweden as well. So after the game, they wait for Chris, and they say, Chris, I believe this is a story. I don't want to botch it up, but you had a good game. What do you think you did? I scored good plays. He goes, yeah, you blocked shots, you killed penalties. He goes, you won 13 draws tonight. Biggest thing we have in Detroit is with the players we have is puck possession and how they played in those days. he was winning faceoffs, and kid could skate. He's smart. He was a good hockey player. I knew him for in Winnipeg. And because he won all those draws and he was really good at something that the team needed, that's not the only reason he was there. Obviously, I'm sure they were going there to see him. He was called up after that, and he ended up, now he's a assistant general manager of the Red Wings, had a nice career. He got picked up for $1. Like, nobody wanted him in the NHL. But I always talk about Scotty Bowman, because if you look back of how many Buffalo coaches are in the NHL, Lindy Ruff, Arneal, Phil Housley, we could talk here forever. And Scotty Bowman had a lot of players. I believe that's why he was one of the best coaches I've ever had, because he would never miss a thing. Intimidating, little mind games here and there. But, and I think that's the important thing to realize in the back of your mind. It's like, some players, I talk to kids all the time. I only have like 8 points in 40 games. Well, maybe that's not the most important thing. You have to do some other things. And that's how you'll get to that vision dream.
And isn't that also kind of, all right, if we bring it back full circles to these kids now, okay, we'll release this in June, second week of June.
Yeah. And
they're preparing. Hopefully people are listening to this, and maybe this is a Swedish kid that are coming over. They're going to go to main camp in the NOL or in the USHL. Maybe this is a US kid and they're going to be going to Canada. Maybe this is a player that is youth hockey or they're already tried out. But let's say I'm going now to whatever tryout. I'm going to try to make a team, and I'm going to try to stick to a team here. Finding who they are, where they are, and having some attainable, measurable things in front of them, and then really focusing on executing that. That's what's in front of them, right?
Yeah, you said the right word, executing. So the littlest things. Okay, when I do these drills in the beginning, if we're not scrimmaging right away, I'm going to be first in line.
Yep.
I always try to do that. And when I was younger, okay, I'm going to be first in line. Oh, really? This kid's going first? They're basic drills. You should understand the drills. If not, then don't go first in line. Go first in line. Get on the ice. Be ready. Be ready that first shift. If the first shift doesn't go your way, find a place on your body to hit the reset button. Hit your shoulder. I work with a PGA golfer. I work with different sports. And if something doesn't happen, he has a reset button. And it's all you need. You need, okay, I'm going to reset. It's okay. Little self-talk to yourself. Okay, I need a better shift.
Yep.
You can't go out there and add all kinds of pressure to yourself, have a piano on your back. Just go out there and be yourself.
Because you're not always going to hit 1,000, right? You're going to mess up. The key though is to stop that pattern, hit the reset, go back, make an adjustment, which is the mental thing, right? This is not a physical thing. You're not always going to have, okay, man, I've got a burr on my skate, Well, I've got 60 more minutes to play.
Right.
What am I going to do? Hit the reset button, start over, focus on what you can control.
That's it. Well, you said it. You have to focus on what you can control as a player.
Yeah.
End of the day, it's you.
Yeah, and I think that for these young guys are, because people are watching, maybe you need to leave the phone in the car, or maybe maybe you need it, but don't be sitting in the locker room, because here comes the coach and he may be looking at how many kids are having their phones out in between, or which one's already dressed and which one, maybe you don't need to be coming in a suit, but maybe you don't need to be wearing the hat backwards and coming in flip-flops or whatever, right? Someone's always watching.
Well, that's, everything you said is right on. That hat backwards, some people say, well, that's how kids are today. And some would say, you know what, keep that hat forward. I agree with you. Be dressed appropriately. Don't look like you just got out of bed. Be prepared to come in. And I work, without getting too deep into it, I work with a lot of hockey players. Now, people, I'm not an advisee. I don't do that. What I do is I work with some of these, like this advisee and some other people send me a bunch of hockey players, some really good ones that are NHL, like OHL players. And I have kids that go to Yale, a few different hockey good players. And the important thing I tell them to do is just be fully prepared when they come into this, whatever situation it is. And don't over prepare, like just be fully prepared. And you said it, all of those things are important. Eating well, putting that phone away and not even looking at the phone. And this is what I wanted to share because I have a college hockey, without saying his name, I didn't know this. I learned this myself because I'm not in the hockey business. I'm, and these players that I'm working with now, they don't tell me, oh, this is what they're doing. But I found this out and I didn't even know this. And I found this out. So for you players, I'm going to share something with you that they're noticing, because one thing they do is they look at social media accounts. And what they look for is, and I hope this person doesn't get mad at me because this is one of the things they do. What they look for, my whole purpose is educating.
Yep.
You can go to Chat AI and put something in there and maybe it will come out. But the one thing they look for more than anything else is how you present yourself, even on social media. If it's all about you, if it's all about what a big goal you had, you're showing one of your videos, just be careful because they're watching. And I'm not saying be fake. I would just be careful with that. I'm not advising. I'm not telling you what to do. I'm just going by from a very prominent Division I coach. The other thing is they want to see what a team effort today, even in a combine. It was so nice playing with so-and-so from Sweden. It was so nice watching these players that are in this USHL that's already on the team and coming up and treating us so well. And I'm not saying be fake, people, because don't do it, everybody. But they want to see that. They don't want to see, hey, I had a big goal. You show a video of yourself. You could do what you want. I'm going to be very clear on that. But I said, oh, wow, I never thought about that. He goes, oh, we're looking at their accounts.
Mm-hmm.
We look at these accounts. So we watch what they say because they want to know who you really are. You'll be great meeting them one-on-one. And another thing, if you ever go out to eat, this is crazy. You're going to say, what? You go out to eat, be very careful how you treat the person who is waiting on or serving you that day. You treat them with the utmost respect, because there was a situation where somebody went in a Starbucks and was parked in handicap. I'm not going to get into the full story. And they rushed in and they were screaming and yelling, where's my coffee? I ordered, I have to go. Let's just say it was a hockey player. And the wrong person was there. And it was terrible. And the person said, now I know why you're working here. And it was really, really disgusting, bad. And you never know who's around. And you shouldn't even do that anyways in your life. So when you're going out with all your friends and you're at these camps, and be very polite, you should be, to the people you're with, and especially the people that are at the table asking you for your order.
But aren't these, and I'm going to wrap it up here, and I appreciate your time and it's been so fun, but aren't all of these things coachable things though, right? It starts with awareness and knowing that these are important things. And if you don't know that they're important, you can learn them. And if you learn them, you can then improve on them. Take a personality that someone is maybe not super social, and it really hurts to look a coach in the eye and shake hands firmly, right? I mean, but it's really uncomfortable and they really like to look down. We've all met people that have a hard time looking someone in the eye, especially when you're nervous. But if you're aware of that, again, mindful, you can focus and you can then say, okay, I'm going to work on this and I'm going to get better at it.
That's a great point. And I was just talking to a player the other day that says, I don't feel like I fit in. Great kid. Great kid. I don't feel like I fit in. I'm kind of shy. Uh, maybe not shy on the ice, but I'm shy. I just sit there. No, how can you help me be that person to be more assertive? I go, number one, you are who you are. You're a great kid. So that's who you are. I play with some very quiet players. Number two, be interested and not interesting. So when you're at training camp, oh, I scored, last year I played here, I did this. Be interested in others and build relationships. And that's all you have to do. Be who you are. Don't change. Now we can learn all these things like meditation is a practice. I didn't like it right away. I only did like 3 minutes and now I learned how to do it. So if you want to try it, you practice it. You practice things like you said, hey coach, hey, nice to meet you. And you listen.
Yeah.
Listen more. And these are things that are going to help you as a player. Somebody was, well, how's that going to help me score more goals? Well, being prepared as a person.
Well, go back to what you said about early on. You said that the first thing they're going to look for is what?
The first thing they asked me at the camps, what kind of a kid is he?
Yeah. Second thing is
he or
a
she
good
have
student. Yeah. Good
The
grades.
third thing is what kind of a player is they want to, can he play? Is he smart? Yeah. Okay. Those 3 things.
Because the competition is so tough. And you go back to your career, you're a bubble guy, right? There's a million Mike Hartmans.
It was hard. Imagine I'm a 4th liner in the NHL.
Yeah.
And then I'm at home, I'm training, I'm feeling good. I do have a contract, but what does that mean, right? And you read that the Buffalo Sabres just signed 2 free agents out of college. And you go, oh no, they just signed Bob Corkum in Buffalo. I remember. I go, he's a strong player. He's ready to play. Well, I'm not going to take think about it. Oh boy, now you start getting nervous. You could play with your own head at sometimes. And it's hard being that player, but I think it helped me being what I call as the underdog. And that's what I love to do. And
yeah. Well, let's wrap up. And so for people though, it says, okay, now I've listened to Mike Hartman, sound like an interesting guy. Got some good things to talk about. Talk about where can they find your podcast? Because I think it's got really short episodes, very poignant. But how do you find the podcast? How do you find your book? How do you find you on LinkedIn? And how do you find your website? It's a lot.
Yeah. So the podcast is the Healthy Mindset APP podcast. It means application. So people say, where's the app? So the Healthy Mindset app podcast is that. The book is on Amazon. You mentioned it early. It's the Healthy Mindset for athletes and workplace athletes. I also teach corporate America how to incorporate everything we talked about today. And my program is healthymindsetapp.com. And 90% of what I do is somebody takes an assessment, they get feedback, and I create a playbook for them, and it's affordable for families. And that's the one thing that I do with the healthymindsetapp.com. You take an assessment, and then you have access to a lot of tools that you get for free anyways. You can listen to the podcast, but that's where I give a roadmap and a playbook because I'm copying what the general manager of the Red Wings did for me.
It's awesome.
35 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, I could tell. I mean, look, there's definitely a passion for what you do in terms of sharing your experiences, and it comes through that your why is you want to help people, and it's really the whole giving back kind of thing. Last thing here. So I mentioned the question I always have. You met yourself at 17. What things do you know now? You're a few years beyond that. I am too. But what things do you know now that you wish you would have known at 17? If you met Mike Hartman at 17, I guess you're in the OHL, right?
Right.
What advice would you give yourself? Not necessarily do it over, but like what advice would you give yourself?
I could talk even in my business. I could say this today and all the time in my life, but at 17, I wish I really knew how to prepare and be prepared. I mentioned that word. It's important. Did I prepare? Is it even at 17, when I went to camp, I trained, I really wasn't prepared. Uh, that to me is the biggest thing, is your preparation, because it's going to help you so much in your life. So being prepared to me at 17, I don't know what would have happened. I didn't even know. I went to visit a college back then. I went to visit Michigan, and I didn't dress the nicest when I was 17. I was maybe talking more than listening, or just saying, hey, asking questions. That my father was there too. He says, man, that was the dumbest thing you've ever said. I go, really? That was stupid. I said something like, I don't see myself going to Michigan or something. My father said, what a dumb thing to say. But so if I could tell every Swedish junior hockey listener out there, be prepared, but not over prepared. And I'm going to use my hands. Don't go, man, I'm like this. I'm going straight up. Life is a series of mini sprints on the ice, mini shifts, up and down. One shift is going to be okay. The next shift may not be great. And somebody told me this, Lindy Ruff, when I played in Buffalo. He says, listen, it's a great line. Yeah, I'll never forget it. He says, it's 60 miles from Rochester to Buffalo. That was our farm team.
Yeah.
But keep in mind, it's 120 miles back from Buffalo to Rochester. And I know I was okay in school, because if you have an opportunity to go to the USHL, it might be your last. If you have an opportunity to play at a high level or play with good players, you may never get that opportunity again. So you always want to move forward. And he always said, just remember that it's very hard to get back. So if someone's giving you an opportunity, make the best of it.
Yeah. Well, last thing, we have a partnership with the Swedish fundraising organization. We're on their website, targetaid.com. They do a great job raising money for youth organizations over there. We'll see if they'll ever come to the U.S., but great platform, kind of like a GoFundMe type of crowdsourcing. But they have a initiative called the Team in My Heart. Klubben i mitt hjärta is the Swedish phrase. But if I was going to ask Mike Hartman, you play for a lot of teams, but which team is the club in your heart?
Very, very tough question, because I got drafted by the Buffalo Sabres, and my dream was to play one game of hockey in the NHL. I told my parents I want to play one game. My mother says, go to school, please. And the Buffalo meant a lot. Now, I played on a Stanley Cup team, and I had a ton of injuries that year. I almost lost my eye, got hurt, and you needed to play 41 games or in the finals. And I played 30 something, 35. And the team fought for me to get on the Stanley Cup, and I did. So
you and Eddie Olczyk.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, I loved everybody, whoever gave me a chance. I played in Tampa during the expansion year, played for Winnipeg Jets, played a ton there. It's so hard, but Buffalo is so important. Like, they open the doors, and I still talk to Don Luce to this day. He's like a kind of this hero of mine. He does what I do as well. Don was in pro hockey for years. I even wore number 20. He was 20 in Buffalo. He drafted me. He saw something in me. So I look at that, and just being part of the Rangers Stanley Cup team, and being on that team, and them keeping me all year. I'm in my heart, I'm fortunate there too. I'm just like I said, I'm that guy that, just like every junior kid, I just had a dream of playing. I was like another fan. I said this, I told Mark Messier, and I just told not too long ago, you were a hero of mine my whole life. And I'm very close with Glenn Anderson. We do a lot together. I do stuff with the Rangers. I said, Glenn, I waited for you after the game when I was 12 years old in Detroit with my dad. We took pictures. He goes, oh, you saw the pictures? I said, it's embarrassing. It's kind of funny, but you and Gretzky and Messier, I loved you guys. He goes, you didn't think of that when you cross-checked me in the back in Edmonton. I said, no, but I loved you. But it's funny, like I was like just like every junior kid, and yeah, it was all a dream come true.
Yeah. All right. Well, we're gonna put you down as a slash Buffalo and New York. We'll put that down.
That's probably fair.
Yeah, yeah. Mike, it's been a joy. A lot of great stories, a lot of great advice. There's lots to kind of takeaways from this. It'd be nice for me to do a summary. I never do it, but I tell myself I should do it. But thanks for coming on. Thanks for sharing your journey and your advice and as a mentor. And if you want to get connected with Mike, you got lots and lots of areas where you can find him. He's pretty public. So we'll see you around the rinks.
No, I really appreciate it. Jacob, thanks for having me. And you do definitely have that Swedish last name. I knew you were.
It doesn't, my son and I talk about this. When I grew up, there was a Dahlin that played, Kjell Dahlin, who played in but it's a lot better to have the last name Dahlin today. It doesn't hurt.
Yeah, I'm going to sign it off here, but it's a Swedish story. We'll leave it at this, but I was in Florida 3 weeks ago where all my family is. My mother, my brother, my cousin, my uncles, aunts, everybody's there. They're big Panthers fans, by the way, on that side. My brother's a Red Wing diehard fan. Wanted us to lose against the Red Wings, Lindstrom, all of them. But I go visit this company because I do work with companies. I mean, I make a living working with the company. So I met this real estate company in South Florida, in Boca Raton. I'm excited that the guy says, I don't follow hockey much, but I do have a former player that sells for us. I go, I probably would know him. He says, yeah, he's doing great. His name is Ulf Samuelsson. I said, I know. I said, oh no. I said, is that going to help my deal or hurt my deal? The Buffalo Hartford days, he was tough. But talk about Swedish players. That was kind of my funny ending story.
He lived in Leksand. He played in Leksand, my hometown, and just sold his house a few years ago. So he's now full time.
Right?
Yeah, I think so. Is where he lives. But hero in Leksand for sure. Even though he's only there a couple of years, but he left his mark wherever he's gone. So.
Yeah, I guess he's in Florida selling real estate because the guy brought up his name, or he did. But yeah.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Mike. We'll stay in touch for sure.
Thanks, Jacob. Take care. Yep.